Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to Pod Mavericks. This is Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe coming to you live early Saturday evening with Mavs After Dark, part of Pod Maverick. I probably already said that, but I'm brain dead today. The Dallas Mavericks just lost to the Boston Celtics, 122-107. How you doing, Josh?
Good. Feels weird to be recording at this time. Like 4:30 games, or that's just an odd time for a game. Not like a big deal. It's just I just thought
my favorite part of your reaction to the game time was that we talked about the game time being Saturday afternoon, and then you realizing it the day of, and you're like, "Wait, what?"
No, I know. I think it was more just, I don't know. I knew it was just I didn't want to believe.
That's right. Delusional. That's right. So after let's be honest here. I don't know what you expected by and large. The Celtics are a different beast than the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are the Thunder are kind of the midpoint between the Mavericks at their optimal and the Celtics at their optimal point, meaning they shoot a lot of threes, yes. They have guys who can attack the basket, yes, but they're not really reliant on one guy. And then they're a maximized version of that sort of midpoint because every guy they play can put the ball on the floor and can shoot. So when the Mavericks got up in the first quarter, it was really pretty exciting. But you're sitting there wondering, when is the math going to break the other way against the Mavericks? And there's the simple fact of the matter is the Boston Celtics shot 30 more three-pointers than the Mavericks. 30. There's not much to be done in that regard if the Mavericks were unable to execute their game plan, which I'd be curious to hear your take on this. Their offensive game plan seemed to be relentlessly attacking at the rim and challenging the Celtics to play good enough defense to contest the shots and put the Celtics into foul trouble to some degree. And I thought they attacked the paint well, meaning the Mavericks, but they couldn't finish. And I don't have the numbers in front of me because
I do.
But it was like PJ Washington, go to finishing school, friendo. Kyrie, friend of the pod, making that up. He's not my friend, but there were just some really heinous misses at the rim. And I was shocked.
Yeah, the Mavericks shot 20 of 37 in the restricted area.
And to be fair,
37 attempts is a ton.
The Celtics defense deserves a lot of credit. Porzingis was huge. So was what's their other guy? Luke Cornett and Horford. They definitely played a role in that. So I'm not taking anything away from that. But some of the attempts that went in and out, or really like my favorite one that's just going to live in my brain particularly if we just don't see Maxi Kleber ever again. Maxi got one underneath the basket and went straight up with his right hand as a right-handed player and shot it all the way over the other side of the rim. And he really wasn't contested. It was a little bit deep, but it was one of those where it's like, buddy, do you possess basketball skills play that just sort of hurt my brain?
It's unfortunate that I don't think I can count the number on one hand, how many layups I saw the Mavericks shot that touched the backboard, but then did not touch the rim. Maxi was not alone tonight. PJ, I think,
had one.
PJ had a couple. Yeah. They did not. That was kind of the story of the game. Boston bombed them from three, which, I mean, that they're going to do that. Like the Mavericks 37. I mean, I don't know if that's just weird scoring by the shot, the people who do the shot chart who keep track of that, but 37 attempts in the restricted area is a ton. So really, like, kudos to the Mavericks for even getting that many attempts. It's just, if you shoot 54% in the restricted area, you're not going to have a good time.
So let me ask you this, because I just don't know the numbers off the top of my head. What is a reasonable percentage in the restricted area for a team that's performing well? Don't ignore the volume, but I'm just talking
league average percentage in the restricted area is 66%. So they were at 54.
So we're talking for the Mavericks, if they were 20 of 37, is that what you said?
Yes, they were 20 of 37.
So we're talking maybe being 24 of 37 here. 4 more made baskets. Does 4 more made baskets make a difference in this game? I don't know. Fresh Prince,
and that just goes to show the math problem that the Celtics present to you, right?
So Fresh Prince has an interesting comment here where he said the Mavericks look better against Boston than they did last year, and I will say that game felt better in a sense. I mean, I don't know if it's the weight of expectations, the way Luka was just not. He didn't have a good series and was getting attacked relentlessly on defense. I could see what the Mavericks were going for. You know, like for example, it was the third quarter. The third quarter, was the third quarter where they got into foul trouble and then just stopped. Like meaning they got Boston into foul trouble with like.
I thought it was the fourth quarter.
I was all over the place because I was like with my kids and doing stuff, but I felt like because they entered the fourth quarter down 20. They entered the second half down 10 and got all the way down to 4. Like the Celtics were only up by 4, and then Boston just bombed them. And part of how they got down is they were just drawing fouls left and right. So I can see the idea behind trying to get, either the Celtics in foul trouble, live at the free throw line, just really attack the teeth of their defense and see what happens. They just couldn't finish, and they didn't finish often enough to make the game interesting. Any real, there was the 4 points. Like I thought the Mavericks played hard. It just the execution was sloppy. And I was trying to explain to my son, who was like, why are the Mavericks giving up these 3-pointers? And I'm like, they're not giving them up. The Celtics are getting the 3-pointers because they just play this. I'm going to be insulting here, but I don't mean it. Like I don't mean it like in an insulting way. It's the way the Celtics play basketball is sort of this like joyless, like bloodletting where they just nuke the math so hard that nothing, like they don't do anything creative at all. They do the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it's not a criticism because it works. It's just
because their roster is awesome.
Because the roster is awesome. Right. So it's like they have figured out that the combination between excellent roster plus true 5-out spread, where it's just like you watch a guy go, even if a guy gets the ball in the post, they or even like the mid post or the short corner, they always relocate. If they pass the ball out of those areas, they relocate to the corners. And when you're pulling like a big man from wing to corner defenses don't do this. They don't practice again because nobody else can do this really. And so I mean it like when I'm saying like I find their offense boring. It's the same shit over and over again, and they just destroy you with it.
Right. Why do something, why change from what's working, right?
Well, it's so funny. You can watch Jason Tatum shoot 33% from the field and it doesn't matter.
No. And it helps that he's a really good defensive player and like he does all that other stuff for them. But yeah, it's nuts. I think I saw our friend of the show, frenemy of the show, Matt Moore, was like trying to talk with someone like why are the Mavericks so successful this season against Oklahoma City and then not against Boston, because those two teams play the same. And like quite frankly, like OKC hasn't had Chet in any of the games. Like a stretch 5 against the Mavericks is this team's kryptonite, and they don't see it too often. But when they do, think about how they play when they play against the Indiana Pacers, when they got a stretch 5, how they play against the Celtics. And then how they do play against the Thunder for the most part when Chet is playing. Obviously, the playoffs they did a much better job, but it's just
Chet is not that.
He's not the high gunner. Like he's not a high volume.
Maybe he'll become it, but he's going to have to shoot with a willingness that Porzingis shoots the ball, and I just don't see it. Like we watched in the playoffs last year where Chet was like, "Fuck, I got to shoot again," whereas Porzingis is like, "I get to shoot again." Yeah, and it's a different deal. It's a different deal.
And it's just hard. The Mavericks want to play big and they want to bully you. And when a team has this much finesse and shooting, it's hard to do it. You still saw it a couple times. Like the Mavericks kind of beat them up on the offensive glass. The Mavericks scored 58 points in the paint. They got to the rim as much as they did. Now they missed, but they got there. Because you think about the Celtics, like they're not a small team. Please don't confuse me for thinking they're not a small team, but they still play 2 average size guards in White and Holiday who are amazing
Obviously
physical players.
Defenders.
Yeah, and Tatum and Brown are big forwards, but again, like the Mavericks play a center and PJ Washington is a 4, and then presumably they would have Luka. Like the Mavericks, fully healthy are bigger, and the Mavericks probably play a little bit bigger than they do, at least in the front court. So they were able to exert that a little bit on them, but like when you can't trade 2s for 3s, like you just can't. And there were stretches where the Mavericks got back into the game because they were able to contest a little bit better, and the Celtics were missing some 3s. But then as soon as the Celtics machine gets wearing up again, it's like it just kind of feels a little hopeless. The one thing I will say about this game, and the reason why you talked about like why did this game feel better than some of the finals games despite the Mavericks injuries, I think part of it was the Mavericks lost this game by what? They didn't lose by 20.
They lost by 15.
They lost by 15. And really, like, they could have won this game. Like, this was a 15-point loss, and I feel like if the Mavericks cut out the self-inflicted wounds, self-inflicted errors, maybe they don't win this game, but it's probably a clutch game going down the stretch because as well as the Mavericks played some possessions in terms of hustle and trying to execute a semblance of a game plan, boy, they gave away so many, like in terms of unforced turnovers, in terms of missed layups that weren't because of the Celtics defense, in terms of the way that they looked so lackadaisical and asleep on some possessions against the Celtics and gave up some open 3s. Like, I don't know if the Mavericks knew who Sam Hauser was before this game tipped off. Like, was he not in the scouting report? He made 2.
I'm like, what are we doing?
He shot 3 times, and all 3 times he was wide open without much action. By the way, like his first made 3, he literally inbounded the ball as on a side out of bounds play, stepped inbounds and caught the ball and shot a wide open 3. It was like the Mavericks forgot he existed, and I'm just like was he not in the scouting report? I don't understand. And the Celtics had a few 3s like that where Maxi and Gafford weren't switching fast enough, or they were playing so far back that when they tried to switch, there's too much ground to cover, right? So it's like, why are you even trying to switch when you're kind of dropping that far off in the pick and roll initially? And the Celtics walked into some open 3s based off that, or getting the Mavericks into rotation. And it was just like, man, you can't play a perfect game against the Celtics, but they kind of demand you to.
Yeah.
Mavericks, if the Mavericks would have cleaned up 70% of their unforced errors, this is probably a more competitive basketball game.
Well, so let's talk about some of those unforced errors. We just got done watching so let me back up. Spencer Dinwiddie is a very functional basketball player who seems to be able to play multiple styles of offensive basketball. We've seen him run the show like a point guard. And I think about 6 games ago, I feel, and I could be wrong, saw this on Twitter, thought it was a great take. Maybe it was my friend Jordan who sent it to me. I can't remember. I get lost in messages in games. But was Spencer told to just never pass ever again? I mean, he's had some weird stat lines for the kind of show running point guard for a guy who at one game, as recently as 13 days ago, he had a 10 assist performance against Denver, and then he had 8 assists against the Lakers. He has gone now in the past 4 games, he has a total of 9 assists to go along with 9 turnovers. That is not a winning, like long term, it's just not a winning solution the way he plays. And I felt that tonight, and again, I always pick on him, but they give him the ball a whole lot. His sort of performance, like his 4 turnovers, his offensive fouls, like he is a heinous defender who makes some real Olay decisions. And you're not allowed to be like to turn the ball over on offense and be bad on defense. You can't do both.
Yeah, that was not great. Celtics obviously put him in a blender.
Yes.
They got him onto Tatum a couple times in the post. That is not a good matchup.
2 out to Maxi Kleber that pissed me off so much.
Passes?
Yeah, like end of shot clock, 4 seconds left, where he dribbles into no man's land and is like, fuck, here, I'm going. Do you remember there's one pass that was in between Kyrie and Maxi and again, I'm picking on him here, but this just sort of situation where we roll the ball out and we're like, Spencer, go do stuff is not, it's just not fair to Spencer, and it's not fair to the other Mavericks because, again, he shot 5 of 7. He got to the line. Did he get to the line? No, he didn't get to the line at all. The refs were not buying his Spencer Dinwiddie chicanery tonight. And it just, I don't want to say it was like, he was obviously +2. It didn't cost the Mavericks in any specific way. It's like one of those things where it's like the Mavericks have to be a little more multiple and be a little more creative. And tonight against the Celtics, they were not.
No, and it's a really tough matchup for all their guards because, again, Holiday and White are like the 2 best defensive guards in the NBA.
Yeah.
And it's like, good luck. But yeah, you're right. You talk about those hand grenades to Maxi. That doesn't count as a turnover. That count in the box score. That counts as a missed shot for Maxi. But like when you're handing him the ball with 3 seconds left on the shot clock after the offense is stalled out, like, I don't know what you're expecting. That's almost like a turnover, but he didn't get to count for it. And then, he got his 6th foul. He fouled out. He gets a technical foul, which they weren't going to win the game anyway. But again, you talk about unforced errors that, that adds to it. But yeah, they've been moving the ball okay as a team, but yeah, that was pretty rough.
This comment's a great summation from Proudvet. He says, why are they playing Luka Ball without Luka when they spent the season moving away from basketball, like a hypercentric Luka focus? It's a good observation.
Yeah, it's true. And I know the big thing coming out of the game, I felt like noise wise was like, Klay Thompson only had 4 shot attempts, 6 points. And I understand it because you look at it and you're like, why is this guy like, he has now been in single digits in 4 out of the last 5 games, 3 straight games in single digits. Actually, you go back, he's 1, 2, 3, 4. He's actually 5 out of the last, I think 5 out of the last 7 games. He's been in single digits. And these are all without Luka.
Well, they're not getting him the ball, and that is an indictment upon the system through which that they are playing.
I know.
They don't pass the ball enough.
Right. And I wonder because everyone's mad because they're like, why aren't they scheming more stuff up for Klay? And like, I'm trying to watch because I kind of think they are. And this is a bad matchup to try to scheme up off-ball stuff for Klay because White and Holiday are probably the 2 best guard defenders in the league. And specifically in terms of what Klay wants to do, they're really like they stick to you like white on rice and like on off-ball screen navigation. Like those might be 2 of the better guys to handle screen navigation in the entire league.
Yeah.
So it's a really tough combination of the Mavericks offense is maybe a little unimaginative right now. Plus, even if when they were like, because they were trying to do some stuff for Klay off ball, he had nowhere to go. Like, I mean, he wasn't getting airspace at all. And occasionally the Celtics were so hyper aware of it, the Mavericks got a decent look off of that. So like his gravity helped a little bit. But at the end of the day, they got to figure it out. Like he can't have 4 shot attempts in a game like this when there's no Luka. He can't be single digit scoring 5 out of the last 7 matchups, 5 out of the last 7 games. Even if you're playing against good off-ball defenders that can screen navigate, they just got to figure something out. And another thing that helped is they didn't get out in transition enough. They had 13 fast break points, which felt like kind of a miracle considering how many layups they were missing. But that's another part of it was the Celtics only had 5 turnovers. So you're not forcing turnovers. You're not getting on like that's an easy way. You don't even have to scheme anything up for that. Like if you can just get out in the open floor and get Klay some open transition threes, that's a way to boost things, but they couldn't get in transition. And then in the half court, it was just a slog. It was just really tough. And the Celtics make it hard for you. Like that's another thing is like you can't just snap your fingers and Klay's going to get, 5 open off ball threes against this defense with the personnel you have out there. Because also, I mean, you've got a rim running center Gafford. So there, that congests the spacing a little bit, although Gafford played really well. I mean, Maxi was maybe the worst offensive game I've ever seen from him.
Just poor guy.
In 11 minutes.
Is he hurt? What happened? I was watching a lot of broadcasts.
He sprained his ankle in the second half and didn't return.
All right, are we going to have to amputate? Is he just done playing basketball for the rest of his career?
No, I don't know, but the Celtics were not guarding him, and that makes it tough. It's very tough to free up your off-ball shooter if the team isn't guarding one of your 4 other teammates.
Poor guy.
So,
He just
like
we kill him, and we've not so much this year just because it's just his game.
He's had some defensive moments this season that I don't feel.
He had a huge 3 last game.
He did.
It's just that his game is so confidence-based that when he makes a mistake, like a viable bet, like that layup I described earlier was horrid. And from there on out, he was awful. And there's just you can't do that. You can't be this scared. And
you can't be a stretch big if you're not making shots.
And what's worse is like he has the skills to do it. Like Jeff Skin Wade still gets grief for an on-air kind of like he just he's really sticking up for Maxi a couple of years ago. The reason that happened is we've seen Maxi play better.
Big reason why they went to the conference finals in 2022.
Yeah, and it's just watching the guy slowly wither in the sun when he makes one mistake is I don't understand it. I mean, go see a sports psychologist, do something. Like he can't be this awful. He's been really fan 123, it's our resident hyperbolist says Maxi's one of the worst 10 NBA players of the season. I mean, I struggle to see where he wouldn't play with anybody else, not playing like this because nobody guards him. He's not a stretch because stretch bigs guard like result in being guarded. He's not guarded. No one cares.
Right. He's not being guarded and he's not making his shots when he does shoot. Like that is literally the worst combination you can have as a role player in the NBA is if you're not being guarded and then when you do shoot, you're not making them. Because by the way, if he was still being guarded like this and he was making 38% of his threes, that's also still if teams ignore him and he's making 30, let's say he's making 36, 37% of his threes, but he's shooting 2 times a game, if his numbers were the same, except his percentages were better, it'd be a little bit better. But if you're only shooting 3 times a game and no one's guarding you, it doesn't matter if you're making, 35%, 37% of your threes. You gotta force the defense to adjust to you, and teams just aren't. Now, again, he's coming off the bench. He's not a crucial cog, but without Lively, and they don't have Powell, they did run a little PJ at the 5, which I thought was interesting, and I thought actually kind of, greased the wheels a little bit. But the Mavericks couldn't make any shots. I thought they guarded pretty well, all things considered. They had a stretch where they played they tried some stuff. They played zone defense in the second half, and they got missed shots, but then they couldn't get a rebound because the zone compromises your rebounding. So they were actually kind of forcing the Celtics into some bad missed jumpers, but then they couldn't get the rebound because they were playing, small ball 5 zone, and they couldn't get matched up to box out. It was just, this felt like what is it? Sif, what's his name that rolls the boulder up the hill and all he turns. Yes, that felt like this game where that was the Mavericks, and then the Celtics felt like they were almost playing half speed and still comfortably winning a game. And then, it was this was like the have and have nots. The Mavericks tried, but they just didn't have it.
Well, they're back at it okay, there's obviously a couple more guys we could discuss. Suffice it, however the hell I'm supposed to pronounce it. I'm hard pressed to really criticize a Kyrie. I issued a tweet that I don't want to be seen as criticism. It's more of just pure confusion, where when some of the shots that he misses are beyond comprehension compared to some of the shots that he makes. He had a move in the third quarter where he drives, he jump stops and gets 2 or 3 Celtics defenders on top of him, steps through to an open layup. And it was a reverse, I'm pretty sure, right side of the basket coming from the left side. So not exactly an easy shot, but then he just shanks the layup. And I was like, how did he do that? How did he did the hard part. And then he missed. I was like, how in the world? So beyond that, no real PJ thoughts. I'm sorry, no real Irving thoughts. PJ just got to work on the finishing. I like the attack is what I'll say. Quentin Grimes.
He was attacking, but yeah.
Quentin Grimes with somehow at least he hit some shots, but he was negative. He was a negative 20 in 26 minutes. So he just must have been out there. Today, guys, if you want to know why Omax is still pretty far away, today was a good example. He played 4 minutes and the game was his 1.75 speed play got used against him. Not his fault. It's just you need reps to get better, and the Celtics aren't a good team to get better about.
But still, isn't it a little weird that he can have his best game in the season and then 2 days later he plays 4 minutes? Like, shouldn't you just give him in a game that you lose by 15?
Right, they were done by the middle of the third quarter, so why isn't he playing more minutes? Yeah,
that's if this was a tight 1 possession, 2-3 possession game from opening tip to the final buzzer, I could probably justify that a little bit better. But when you're getting your doors blown off in the third quarter and you're in your second year player that had the best game of his season,
that's fair.
2 days ago doesn't get like that's weird to me. That's weird.
Yeah, and Drew points out he's the backup 4 now, so we better get used to seeing him. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, there. Especially Maxi went out and he still didn't play.
Yeah,
by the way, because Maxi got hurt in the third quarter. So I don't know that was people are pretty mad about Kid for this game, and it's whatever. I don't want to talk about coaching in this kind of game. But that was the one thing. Like if I had to disagree with a coaching decision, it would be that one. And otherwise it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Okay, guys, I want to go hang out with my wife and actually spend some time with her this weekend. So I'm not going to do a secondary show. We'll do one on Monday. The Mavericks play the Wizards. Hopefully that's a get right game. If they lose to if they lose to the Wizards, just maybe we do pack it up and tank. I guess there was some news today, and keep in mind, Mark Stein is somebody I have become text friends with. Still haven't actually gotten a chance to meet him, but I text them every now and again. He's a good dude, and he published a story today on his site, and then DLS covered it about how the Mavericks are optimistic Luka could be back before All-Star break. I simply cannot emphasize enough how much that doesn't matter when there are 3 weeks until All-Star break. Like it is marketing. It's driving me nuts, and I'm just like,
you feel like they're selling it as like he's coming back soon, and
right? That's what it's like. This is not soon. We could be under 500. What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. I guess it is. The news is no setback. At least that's
true.
the news to me. That's the news.
That's a good point.
You take what you can get.
No, I become.
No, I understand what you mean.
Stuff because Chuck Cooperstein pointed this out to me where he's like, they have to be cagey and all this soft tissue injury language because if they're wrong, for example, like the way they've been wrong about Dante Exum, all we do is bitch about it, which is true.
Yep, that's fair. You damned if you do, damned if you don't.
All right, guys, been fun insofar as something like this can be fun. We'll talk again on Monday night. I will definitely do a Mavs party or group therapy. Everybody have a good rest of your weekend. We will talk soon. Go Mavs and Chiefs.